Okay, welcome back. This is part 2 in this training for you as the emergency legal agent. Remember what we talked about last time is why did they create it? Well, now we're going to talk about what happens if worse comes to worse and there's an emergency. So if there's an emergency, my client's in a car accident, has a stroke, some other just terrible thing that we all hope and pray doesn't happen, then that's when you spring into action. However you find out about that, it usually just happens through happenstance. That's why there's a few people named as emergency legal agents, just whoever's around kind of at the time of the emergency. You find out about it, you spring into action, and here's what I want you to do. You hopefully will have stored that packet that we sent you safely somewhere in your files. You know where it is. What you'll do first, you'll go grab the packet, okay? Having that physical piece of paper is actually going to be a lot easier sometimes when you walk into a building and say, hey, here I am for so-and-so, and here's my proof. This is my legal authority to act on their behalf. So, number one, I want you to grab the packet. That's it. Grab that packet. That's always number one. Number two, I want you to call the hospital, the whatever, wherever you know they are, call and say you can be a point of contact. Hurry and get your name on record with them. If you can go there, even better, that way you can hand that document to them personally. Don't let them keep it. Just tell them to make a photocopy so you get it back. And then third, I want you to notify the family or loved ones that you know should be notified. You know my client, our client, well enough, hopefully, to know who needs to be notified in their life. Start making those phone calls and say, here's what's happened. Just share the information. Tell the family that you are a legally designated emergency contact and you are on file. That way people don't wonder about it. You can share a copy of your emergency legal agent with them. That way nobody's wondering what's happening here. Okay? And then until the permanent power of attorney, the permanent trustee steps in and starts to take care of business, your job is to do these 5 things. First, I want you to secure the house. You know where they live, so go over to the house and make sure things are secure. Okay, that just means making sure the house is locked up, make sure the landscape's not getting flooded, make sure the stove wasn't left on, food's not spilling out all over, the dog's not, tearing the garbage apart. And that's the second thing, is secure the pets. Okay? Doesn't mean you have to take them home and adopt them, though, if you can, temporarily, if you want to. But it does mean, find somebody who can hold on to them for the time being or make sure they're okay. If you need to place them into whatever it's called, boarding home for a few days, that's fine, but make sure they're secure. Make sure the pets are okay. Third is I want you to secure their papers. You may or may not have to do that because this may come and go quickly, but if it's not being resolved, if things aren't being resolved quickly, then you do need to make sure their papers are secure. That means getting their mail, collecting it, securing it. That means going through the house. Yes, it does mean going through their files and making sure that their most important papers are secure, because a lot of times what happens during these emergencies is that one family member, I'm not going to name names, but that one family member shows up to be all kinds of help during the emergency, and they start taking papers and then nobody can find them. You're empowered to inventory, take care, and hold on to those papers, okay? So that's definitely one of them. And 4, I want you to notify, I already told you this, but 4, notify their family, the ones that they have told you should be notified. And then 5, I want you to notify their advisors. Okay, and that's certainly their attorney. Notify our law firm, Keystone Law Firm. Notify their financial advisor. Their financial advisor needs to know if they have one or two, or I don't know, notify. I wouldn't go around notifying their banks yet. That's not necessary, but definitely notify their financial advisor, and then notify their CPA if you can find out who their CPA is, especially if it's tax season. Those would be the advisors I would make sure you notify. And in part of doing all of this, right, with these two things especially, make sure, like I said, you get onto the list of people who are authorized to get information from the hospital, from the doctor, wherever they are, so that way they don't get lost in the system. We've actually had that happen where somebody got admitted. They didn't get people on record as having authority to get information fast enough, and then they got transferred, and literally we lost them. So it took a big effort to track that down and finally get the family connected back up. So make sure you get on file as the person who can receive information. That's part 2 of this training, and save these videos, right? You want to go back and watch these if you need to. That's your job during this time period, okay? You don't need to worry about more than that. That's enough, all right? Next, part 3 of the video, we're going to go over the things that are not your job. There's a bunch of things that are not your job, and that's what we're going to talk about in part 3.